Welcome to Introduction to Yoga. This is a class where I teach you some of the most basic yoga postures that you will find in almost any yoga class that you can get to. I think that most of my videos, honestly, and a lot of the videos I find online, they speak to people who are somewhat familiar with yoga. Now, if you want to start doing yoga a little bit more, slow yoga is the videos you want to find, because there you have more time in each posture to figure out where to put your hands and your feet and all of that. Now, if you want to learn how to do cross yoga, you also need to learn the postures, because sometimes if you want to focus on breathing and finding that rest and that connection to God, knowing where to put yourself and getting that down first is really nice, because otherwise you're like, there's a lot of things going on, right? It's a learning curve, everything we do. Now, I'm standing here with this beside me. It's a block, and it can look in lots of different ways. This is just one I like. It's really great if you are stiff in your body. I did yoga to begin with because I felt like I was walking around like a robot and I needed the little bit more softness in my body. So know that if you feel like you're stiff in your shoulders, in the back of your legs, in your hip flexors, these blocks, maybe 2 of them, or big books or water bottles, something like that, is really great to support you. And I'll share with you when to use them. We'll start down on the mat. So most yoga classes begin with a little bit of breathing. And that's just a way how to land yourself, get yourself, ready, and you're not running into a yoga class and like, now I have to relax. And you're like, so sitting down, even on the block, is great. So now, the first thing I want to share is actually how to sit. So you don't have to sit in any specific way. Simple seated, I like to call it, is simply some sort of cross-legged position. Lotus pose, where you take the leg up and twist the ankles and the knees somewhat. I would never recommend anyone to do that if you're new to yoga. I never do it. I am mindful of my knees. So just any seated position that you can sit in for a while. Now, most of us use support when we sit in a chair, in the couch. So we have something at the back to lean into. This means that the abdomen, the core, the back is not as strong as it could be for most of us. So if you're invited to sit here and breathe and look relaxed and peaceful for 5 minutes, your back, the first month, if you do it regularly, will kill you. You're like, oh man, I can't sit there for that long. Don't worry, you will get the strength eventually. And if you're in a class and you're like, oh, the other sitting still, I can't do it, move. Okay, whenever you go to your class, it's your class. So just move and just shake things out. And when you do a little bit of movement, it's like you're resetting your muscles, and then you can sit again. Or if it's completely a no-go, just come down on your back. Completely fine, just rest on the floor. Seated, just want to share one simple thing. Straight spine, we sometimes say. The spine is not straight, and hopefully never will be straight like a flag. It has those curves, and it needs to have that. So when you sit straight, don't think you have to sit straight and really engage everything. You need to sit somewhat comfortable as best as possible. So in my back, I need to be mindful of not shooting or arching my back completely in the effort to sit straight. So I'm actually learning how to soften a little bit in this. So some sort of softening as you are here is great. So that's just a simple seated in whatever way that works for you. Now, after that, there's often some warm-up. Seated maybe, you do some spinal things. And we want to warm up the spine before we do other things, because yoga involves a lot of back bending, side bending, which is great for the spine. But it's also good if we warm it up by gentle, dynamic movements. So just know that's probably going to happen. Downward facing dog. That's another one. I would dare to say that most people really don't like downward facing dog the first couple of months when they do yoga, but I'm going to introduce it to you anyway and share with you what you can do if you feel like too much down dog in a class. So if you're with me on the mat, and I hope you are, you're going to take your hands here in front of you, spread out your fingers. Now I have a big mat here. So I can't really get my pinky finger to the edge of the mat, but maybe you can with the size of mat you have. I like that distance because that can benefit something, do something great in our shoulders. Now, downward facing dog would be tuck the toes under, get the knees off, and then get yourself in a triangled position. Keep the knees bended, please. You see my knees are bended. And then you take the back, the hip, the sitting bones there, kind of move them away from your hands with your knees bended, okay? Keep your knees bended. Now, most of us will take our arms to put completely into our ears. So maybe you soften your arms a little bit, bend the elbows, just a little bit. So there's space between your ears and your arms. So you can feel the shoulder blades maybe go a little bit back. This would be downward facing dog. Let's get out of it again. Gonna go back into it, but just in a moment, because child's pose is an amazing one for most people. Some knees are not fond of this. Now, bending your knees, and you can see I have some distance in between my knees when I get into child's pose. It's because my belly needs to go somewhere. So I like that. I have my toes together. Doesn't have to be like that. I bring my sitting bones back towards the heels. Now, because I'm used to doing this, I can get my sitting bones somewhat back towards my heels and the forehead on the mat. Like that. And typically arms would be in front. Now you can take a look at this posture and then get yourself in something that looks like it. Now, a lot of my yoga classes, when I teach this, a lot of people look like this, but there are also a lot of people who are more like this. You see my hip is higher up, and that's fine as well. It's a little bit harder on the knees, but it's simply because of not enough flexibility in the thighs, and there could be a lot of things going on. So this can be the posture, and it is just as good if you feel somewhat relaxed in it. So don't feel like you have to squeeze yourself back with the heels towards the buttocks. It might come. If there's something with your knees and you can't do child's pose, I always recommend simply just to come down on your back. Oh, sorry, on your belly and rest here. Okay. Let's just do downward facing dog. Again, do you remember what it was? Spread the fingers out. And maybe even grab the edge of the fingers there really firmly down, the knuckles down. Tuck the toes under, keep the knees bended, and take the chest somewhat in between your arms, sitting bones, hip back. Try to pull them back. Now then, maybe you want to stretch your legs a little bit. Now, I can almost get, depending on where I am, get my heels down. But that took me months or years. So the idea is that you just keep your legs bended, your spine straight. And then eventually, the more flexibility you get in your hamstrings, the back of the thigh, and the Achilles tendon, the more you can stretch your legs. But nothing is right and wrong. All right, so we're going to take the right leg to the front. And you often see this transition. So you're going to bring the leg back. If this is not doable, just listen to me and next time we go through a posture. You're going to bring the right leg to the front. And often I see people like helping with the hand, and that's perfectly fine. Gonna do warrior two. So you turn the back foot around. Align the back foot with the short end of the mat. So take a look at your back end mat. Yep, aligned. Gaze at the front foot. The front foot here, the arch, is aligned with the long end of the mat. Now, if you look at your feet again, and you have a pencil, and if you were drawing a line from the heel back towards the back foot, you would have heel alignment, or heel to arch alignment. Again, it's not science. It's not like millimeter precisely, but somewhat. Okay. Moving a level up. Knees. Front knee. Move it over the ankle. Avoid dropping it in. And if you drop it in, I'll guide you into what to do next. As you see, the back leg is stretched out. So this is where I want to stay. Now the hip, if you feel the hip bones in your own body, is somewhat aligned with the long end of the mat. If you again drew that line with a pencil. Shoulders as well, directly above the hip bones there. And the arms fly out to the side, aligned with the floor again. And typically you would gaze over the front hand there and look at that. Yeah. So that's warrior 2. If the knees drops in and you want to make it a little bit easier, just shorten the distance in between your feet. Much less strain, tension on your ligaments, your joints and all of that. Awesome. Bring yourself down. All the transitions in yoga, going from one posture to the next, is also pretty important. So you can bring your hands down, take the back heel off, and then step back. Downward facing dog. Whoa. All right. And let's just do one last thing, because we have to do warrior 2 on the other side, so you remember it. Left leg. Now take a look. If you happen at one point to get the leg somewhat over there, look if I am doing this in slow motion, what I do with my fingers and my shoulder. I lift it away. A lot of people are like, I can't do it. No wonder you can't, because my knee is going to be exactly where my shoulder is. So of course I'm going to move a little bit away to make the space. Stack front knee and ankle. Turn the back foot around again. Look at the heel alignment. Get yourself up, opposite side or direction than before. Bending front knee over ankle. Stretching the back leg, not hyperextending. Hip, shoulder, arms out. I know this sounds like a lot of information, but when you've done it a few times, it's like, oh yeah, I know where to go. Okay. So this is warrior 2 or warrior B, somebody calls it. From here you can do a lot of things, moving back and forward and play with postures. So it's a great posture to know. I'm gonna finish now. I just want to add the last thing. So I stepped back, as you saw, quite quickly. So if down dog is just killing you, do tabletop. Most things that we do in downward facing dog, you can definitely do in tabletop. So sometimes when you do a 3-legged dog or something like this, you don't have to do it. You can do that here just as well. Bring it in, or, so lots of great things in tabletop as well. So this was the first video where I introduced a few of the postures. I hope they make sense. Let me know if there is a specific posture that you would like me to explain, because I would love to do that. Otherwise, I'll go, next video will be on high lunge or crescent lunge and low lunge, and just a few more of these very common postures. Make sure to like, subscribe if you haven't already. Have a wonderful and blessed day.